Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Okay, so it looks like we're live, and that's just great. Everything's working the way it's supposed to be. And so we're live on Facebook right now, and later on today, on Friday, June 3rd, we will be on all of our podcast channels, including Pandora and Google Play and iTunes, Podbean, all of the many channels that we're on. And so you can look forward to hearing us there as well. But for those of you who are joining us on Facebook, welcome to the Must Read Alaska show for June 3rd. Really happy to have the Charlie Pierce for Governor campaign that is sponsoring this show. He's our sponsor. We really do appreciate you, Charlie, and your team for sponsoring the Must Read Alaska show and for supporting conservative journalism around Alaska so that we can get this message out to everybody. And so today, beautiful day here in South Central Alaska, and a huge newsletter this morning. If you didn't pick up the morning newsletter in your inbox, well, go to the top of the page at mustreadalaska.com and click on the little newsletter link and get your name in there. We recently switched newsletter providers, and so in doing so, I think I've lost about 1,000 subscribers, and every day somebody contacts me and says, I haven't seen the newsletter since, January or February. That's about the time we switched and lost about 1,000 subscribers. And that was a really odd event that happened with MailChimp and their artificial intelligence, which decided that they didn't like the way we reported on COVID. So they decided to cancel us as a customer. That was cancel culture. But I'll be posting that as well on our website. The newsletter goes on our website about 2 times a week, and so check that out. But if you want it in your inbox, go to the top of the page there and check on it. And today we have a really fantastic guest with us. I really don't want to waste any more time. I want to welcome Nick Begich to the show. Nick Begich, who is running for U.S. House for the state of Alaska. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you. Great to be back.
Yeah, and I can't even remember the last time you were with us on the show. I think it was last year. It was quite a long time ago. When you were on the show with us last time, you were the only other candidate really filed in the race for U.S. House. And now things have gotten really, really crowded. You were the co-chair of the last Don Young campaign cycle. Now you're a candidate for this seat. And this has just been a campaign of twists and turns. And we've had some of the other candidates on our show. We had Jeff Lowenfels, we had Tara Sweeney. We've had some of the other ones as well. Santa Claus, I think, joined us. We're really happy to have you back because you have been in it since October. You kind of figured out way back then that maybe Don Young maybe we needed to have an alternative because he was not getting any younger, right?
Well, that's true. And I have been in the race for coming up on 9 months now. At this point, I've been in the race longer than any of the other candidates. And I think when we consider, the candidates that are out there, and there are 48 candidates, I don't think Alaskans have had more choice at any point in our history in an election than this one. But we also need to look at, why is someone in the race? Why did they choose to get in the race? So many of these candidates, opportunistically got involved in the race only after the passing of Don Young. And, I think that's a factor that voters need to consider as they're heading to cast their ballot.
Oh, well, and that's a really good point. So you jumped in because you really felt you had some policy differences between you and Don Young. And I believe that you also realized that at 89 years old, he was just getting really, there were some physical ailments and he was starting to break down. And it was a big job to be going back and forth to Alaska. And of course, he died on March 18th, which shocked all of us because, I don't know, for all of us, he's been the only congressman we've ever really known. And so let's talk a little bit about where you've been the past. I just want to go back a couple of weeks because we don't have time to go back the whole 9 months with you.
Right, sure.
And and I know that things got really kind of crazy around April 1 when everybody jumped in, and you're like going, yeah, well, welcome to the party, everybody. But let's go back the past 10 days and talk about where you've been. Just recount with us. I looked at your FEC reports, and one of the things that stood out was you've been buying a lot of Alaska Airlines tickets, and you've been traveling all over the state. It's very obvious that you're spending your money to travel around to communities. What's going on?
Well, so I think it's very important. If you're going to represent the state of Alaska, you've got to make sure that you meet the people of Alaska where they are. And that's been a central tenet of our campaign since we started almost 9 months ago. I mean, I've been out in Valdez, Glen Allen, Homer, Kachemak, Voznesenka, Juneau, Haines, you name it, Kenai, Soldotna, certainly Anchorage. And, we were just in Wasilla, in fact, last night, at a combined district meeting, 25, 26, and several other districts had representation there at the district meeting. And there were at least 60 people there, all very interested in the race. Many of the people I knew, but a lot of new folks as well. And so we continue to see rising levels of interest in the race. Right now, I think we're running at about 19% total turnout recorded by the Division of Elections, but I think Alaskans are going to continue to turn out as we head to the final day to cast our ballots. But that's been the tenet. We go out and we meet people where they are. We don't shy away from holding events. There's other candidates in this race. Maybe, like a Sarah Palin's done, I think 4 events so far. In some days, we'll do 4 events in a single day. And so, we're not going to stop. We haven't had any days off since we started, and we're not going to take any days off.
Wow, you guys are a hard-charging group. So you've been to Valdez, you said, Homer, I'm taking notes here, Petersburg, Kodiak, Juneau, Wasilla.
Yeah, Haines, Voznesenka, Kenai, and Soldotna. I mean, it's just everywhere. And I'll tell you what, Kodiak, for those who haven't had the opportunity to go, the Crab Festival down there is a blast. And
yeah, well, it did help that it was not raining, because Kodiak is a rainy environment.
It was perfect weather. Weather.
Yeah, you nailed it in terms of weather. That was a Chamber of Commerce day. I mean, I saw the pictures of everybody down there, and I was quite jealous. But there were a lot of people in Kodiak.
Oh my goodness, there's so many, and that's the largest. It's the largest Coast Guard base in the country in Kodiak, and so we've got people that have been there for generations. We've got people that have been there that just showed up, right? And so you meet a whole lot of folks from around the country. People come up for the festival. But it was a great mix of people, a lot of conservatives out there, and people that are just enjoying aspects of the state that unfortunately a lot of Alaskans never get to see.
Right. And, I will admit to you that I haven't been to Kodiak since I was probably 22. And so that's a couple of generations ago. It's quite a long time ago for me. And I'm sure it hasn't changed all that much. But when I was there, I remember that it was just rainy and dank and cold and the wind blew all the time. But when the pictures I saw, oh man, that was some nice weather you guys had. Everybody's in their t-shirts and their shorts, and they were having a good time. All right. Well, so when you're out and about and you're in these communities and you're talking to people and you're trying to explain a little bit about your history and who you are and why people should vote for you, what you plan to do, what are you hearing from Alaskans? Because obviously you're also not just talking, you're listening. And I'd like to know what Alaskans are talking about.
Well, it's a mix of national and local issues. There's still a lot of conversation around the PFD. There's conversation around development within the state of Alaska and continued prosperity within the state of Alaska. Among some of the younger folks, let's say folks under the age of 40, there's always a voiced concern around, is Alaska going to continue to produce opportunities for me and my family? And that seems to be a recurring theme with folks. There's a lot of concerns around what's happening in our schools and what's happening with respect to the state's educational outcomes, expressed all kinds of different ways. But parents have valid concerns and express those concerns regularly on the campaign trail regarding what's being taught in schools, and the quality of our education in the state of Alaska.
Is anybody talking out there about the cost of living?
Oh, absolutely. Particularly when I was in Kodiak, I heard a lot about that. In coastal Alaska, in the more rural parts of Alaska that we've traveled to, that's an even greater concern among folks. And everything from the gas prices to the food prices to the cost of housing, and even among business owners, the availability of labor to kind of keep up with all the demand out there. It's been a real issue, particularly among small business, to be able to hold prices where they are and eat some of the prices that they're experiencing on the producer side. And so it's a big concern that people express everywhere we go all over the state. What are we going to do about inflation? Why do we have inflation? What steps can we start taking now and over the long term to make sure that we've got stable pricing? One of the interesting things about this, if you're a saver, you're punished due to inflation. If you are a retiree on fixed income, you're punished due to inflation because your money's worth less. And folks who are no longer in that part of their lives where they're working, they're very concerned about making sure that they can maintain their standard of living and even in some cases stay in Alaska.
Right, and I'm hearing from several people in my generation, which is a generation or ahead of you there, that they're going to postpone retirement because the value of their savings has declined significantly, and that in their 401ks, and because the value of their Social Security dollar just isn't going to stretch as far. Their rents are going up. The cost of gasoline is going up. I just saw in California where they have high taxation, so it's a little bit higher there, $8 a gallon, but it's way over $5. It's not even close to $5 now. It's way over $5, like $5.40 here now in Anchorage, and it's probably more expensive. And in the villages, it's going to be extremely high. The barges just got up the rivers with the new fuel, and that fuel is going to be, $10 a gallon or more, probably up to 16, right? Yeah. For some places. And so we're looking at what could be some really existential choices for Alaskans. And so talk to us a little bit about monetary policy and what's going on with the printing of our money and how the Biden administration is addressing inflation in the country, because it's not just about baby food, it's everything now.
Yeah, it's across all categories. What's interesting now economically is we're starting to see what they call demand destruction. And so people are literally making different choices in their life about, priorities, right? And they're saying, look, I've got to decide between, in some cases, it's as simple as, am I going to take a vacation in this place or another place, or am I going to take one at all? For other people, it's, do I buy new shoes for my son or daughter, or do we have dinner tonight? I mean, it's starting to get to be that kind of a discussion for many Alaskans. And, you look at, I just saw some information come across the tape here about an hour ago. It turns out that gas prices are almost double today what they were when Biden stepped into office. And you ask the question, what's Biden and his administration doing about inflation? Not much. Not much. In fact, many of the policies that they're advancing successfully through the Congress and over to the president's desk only contribute to the inflationary environment that we have right now. When you look at some of the federal spending that's been going on, you can trace inflation's root cause all the way back to this spending policies, not just now, but if we're going to be honest, over the last 3 to 4 years. And what's happened is the government's been running extraordinary deficits. We, in the last 4 years, have added over $8 trillion to the national debt. And oftentimes we think that's financed by international buyers of our debt, sometimes China, sometimes others. But in this particular case, that financing happened through the Federal Reserve. Well, when the Federal Reserve finances that kind of deficit spending, they do so by creating money. And if you look at the Fed's balance sheet, it's over $9 trillion right now. So they have dramatically increased the size of the money supply because the Fed creates the money. They dramatically increased the size of the money supply, and you have all this cash that was created. In fact, 40% of the money that circulates in the economy today was printed in the last 2 or 3 years. All that cash circulating through the economy, chasing the same number, same supply of goods and services in the economy. So more cash, fixed number of goods and services, you're going to get inflation. It's obvious. And unfortunately, a lot of the members of Congress either don't understand that or are not all that concerned with it.
Well, that's okay. Did I hear that right? That you're saying that 40% of the dollars that we have in circulation, the dollar in my wallet right now, 40% of those was printed when?
In the last 2 to 3 years. And you can go out to the Fed's chart on this. If you look at the M1 and the M2 money supply charts out on the Fed, you'll see what I'm talking about. You don't have to take my word for it. And this is the sort of thing that it can get pretty dangerous. I mean, even Elon Musk was out tweeting here in the last month that if this continues, if this sort of policy thought process were to continue, you end up in a place like Zimbabwe or Venezuela, where you start to abuse the currency. And if you create a whole lot more of something, eventually the demand for it will fall off. And that's what we're seeing right now. In order to buy a good or a service, you've got to come up with more cash.
Well, that brings me to sort of a little side note on that, which is I was talking to somebody about some of the big ARPA, the big CARES Act construction projects that are out there. I think it's ARPA construction projects that are being built out there. And they're coming in with bids that are 50% higher than what was expected. And because A, things are more expensive, but B, there is so much money. There's so much money out there that they know that they can bid these projects higher. And I think it's going to be a really interesting thing to see how this capitulates throughout the economy and creates hardship. In the end, this kind of thing is poor policy and it creates hardship. So hang on to your hats, everybody. I don't know what you do when you're in Congress and you only one vote.
Well, we've got to replace those members one at a time, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. You're only one vote, but you get enough of us down there in the Congress singing from the same book, you can make some different policies. And what we see though, from really the progressive left is this idea, hey, let's just fire out checks to everybody and everything will be fine. But the reality is, as we see through this inflation, this resulting inflation, that in fact, those policies hurt those that can afford it the least, the most.
Yeah.
Because it's those people on the edge that suffer the most during inflation. One of the interesting things that you've seen, and it's really sad and it's really tough, you see all of those great wage gains that we had under the Trump administration. It's net negative now. If you look at the last 15, 16 months of real wages, that's wages after adjusting for inflation, people are going backwards. We're actually losing purchasing power over this last year and a half. And again, it goes back to the Biden administration that really has declared war effectively on U.S. production, right? And U.S. production.
And Alaska, especially Alaska. I mean, we look and we see that if you would like to get this economy turned around, let Alaska help. But they won't. They want to lock us up and go it alone, and I guess depend on Russian fuel or something.
Well, it's extraordinarily hypocritical too when you consider, we hear over and over again in some of the national press and certainly from the Biden administration that we must transition to this new green economy and how wonderful it is. And yet we know that so many of these minerals and resources are being developed in jurisdictions that do not honor any sort of environmental norms around how you extract these resources and how you treat the environment. And oh, by the way, so many of these jurisdictions, yes, they're using child labor, right? Yeah. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they're using 12-year-olds to sift through dirt in rivers looking for that little nugget of cobalt so we can feel good about driving these electric vehicles. Well, that's just wrong. I don't care if you're on the left or the right, that's just wrong. And we need to be doing that work here in the state of Alaska and in our nation. And we have all the resources to solve these problems for our country. And that's one of the messages I want to take on behalf of Alaskans down to DC, is that we really are the answer to so many of our nation's problems right now.
Oh, we are. I mean, we've got it all. We've got the rare earth minerals. We've got the gold. We've got the copper. We've got the silver. We've got coal, which coal can be burned cleanly and often is. And of course, we've got oil and gas. And we've also, there's nothing wrong with expanding to wind power and to solar power, to tidal power, but those things do take minerals to create as well. And we do have the minerals to create them. Well, I know that we're going to run out of time here. I want to kind of look ahead a little bit. And thank you for talking to us today, by the way. I want to look ahead a little bit and say, what are you going to be doing the next few days? Because we have just like 8 days left of this election. So where will you be?
Well, I'm going to be up in Fairbanks, and we're going to be having an event at a private residence up in Stuck again this weekend here on Saturday. We're going to be having a large event on June 9th, and people are welcome to attend. It's going to be at Keith Monternach's hangar. Again, June 9th. I think that starts at 5:30. We've been getting a ton of endorsements. Endorsements continue to roll in. That's been really, really humbling to see. But yeah, we're not slowing down one bit. We're gonna work every single day, just like we have been working every single day for this last 9 months, and continue to push through all the way through the general, into the next primary, into the next general. So,
well, you guys are the Energizers bunnies on your campaign, and I know you've been really careful with your money. You've been running a pretty lean campaign. But tell me, how's the fundraising front going? What's going on? Because there's so many candidates. Doesn't that just sort of paralyze the fundraising piece of it?
For some, I think it probably does. But we've been really excited and proud to have so many Alaskans supporting our campaign. I mean, you look at the donations that we received in this last reporting period. About 90%, a little over 90% of our donations came from people who live in Alaska. And as an example, Sarah Palin, about 85 to 90% of her donations are coming in from out of state.
Wow,
out of state. And of the reported donations, my understanding is that she raised about $23,000 from Alaskans. We raised nearly 5 times that from Alaskans. Yeah. And I think what Alaskans are saying is, look, we support your campaign. We're engaged. We're excited. And we're looking forward to having a new, fresh voice in DC that's going to be able to actually advance the policies and priorities of Alaskans nationally. And I hope to do that on behalf of the people of Alaska.
Well, I really, truly appreciate all the time you spent with us today here on the Must Read Alaska show. You've done a really good job of sort of covering the arc of where you've been and what some of the topics are that people are asking you about. It's gas and groceries. Gas and groceries is what they really care about right now. And where you're going to be in the next few days. You said you're going up to Fairbanks. Say hi to my lady friends in Fairbanks. I love my Republican women friends up there. Before we go, I just want to thank your campaign for letting you spend some time with us, and thank Charlie Pierce for Governor for sponsoring our show. Charlie Pierce for Governor is the first sponsor of the Must Read Alaska show. We don't have a Mike Lindell with My Pillow. We have a Charlie Pierce for Governor. We're so grateful to him for making sure this show can reach all the nooks and crannies of Alaska. And we will be back on Monday with more on the Must Read Alaska show. And until then, Nick Begich, good luck to you on the campaign trail. We'll see you somewhere in Alaska. And goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.